Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
To a very exciting program. One that we had last year that was so well received that we decided to tweak it just a little bit this year and have a designer who has utilized press, social media, and branding so very well in her practice be a part of this panel after our experts on press and social media do their presentations. So we are in for a real treat with Ren Miller, the editor of Design NJ Magazine, Sarah Fletcher of Sarah Fletcher Communications, and Blanche Garcia today. So I am Jeffrey McCullough. I am the chair of the Student Affairs Committee for ASID New Jersey and chair of Student and Emerging Professionals Week, along with a fantastic committee that if you stick around for the keynote presentation, you will hear all of those names called at that time after the keynote presentation, which, by the way, begins at 1:30 promptly. And if you have not already registered for the keynote, you can still do that at nj.asid.org/events. But now for the program at hand. And just before we get started, I want to introduce you to our chapter president, Virginia Liberato, who will say a few words before we get started.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Welcome, everyone. I want to just take a moment to really thank our sponsors for today, our chapter sponsors, gold sponsor, Design NJ, our silver chapter sponsors, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, and Ferguson. And then we also have some wonderful Student and Emerging Professionals Week sponsors, Du Chateau Floor, CSS Lighting, and Michelangelo Designs. And for those of you that were in the waiting room, you got to see all their beautiful ads. I do want to quickly just thank everyone for putting this week-long event together. I just got off portfolio reviews. It's been so invigorating and exciting, and looking forward to a great day today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Virginia. And I just want to remind everyone that we want this to be interactive. So there will be Q&A time at the end of our group panel presentations, but also the chat box is there for you to put your questions in. We are going to try to field as many questions as we can, whether they come via the chat box or live. There's always something extra special, I must say, about live questions. It just feels very real. So don't be shy about that. Also, to our panelists and to those in attendance, we want all of the programs of Student and Emerging Professionals Week to be a tool that you will refer to, not just today, but down the road. And so all programs are recorded and are available via the chapter's website and YouTube channel. So please do think of ASID New Jersey as providing resources that really will serve as career and business tools for you. Now for the topic at hand, and we're going to start with Sarah Fletcher. Sarah P. Fletcher is the principal of Sarah P. Fletcher SPF Communications. She is an experienced and strategic PR and marketing communications professional who began her career teaching English and American history and then moved to House and Garden magazine, where she was research editor. Following that, she spent 16 years leading the furnishings and design practice at Lou Hammond and Associates, where clients included Hunter Douglas, Brewster Home Fashions, Howard Miller Clocks, Michael Graves Architecture and Design, and Wilson Associates, among others. Establishing her own firm in 2016, she is very proud to represent the New Jersey chapter of ASID among other important clients. And she does an absolutely fantastic job for ASID New Jersey. So Sarah, the floor is now yours. Take it away.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Just going to start. Going to move this over. What can a PR marketing person add to a team? A PR marketing person can grow your brand and recognition while you're busy doing the work. Media are overwhelmed and being pitched all the time. It helps to work with a PR professional whom media know. From a journalist perspective, they can get 5 stories out of someone like me versus 1 from a single designer. And they also, if they know the person, they know if they say that they need something by 1 o'clock, they'll get it by 1 o'clock. A PR marketing professional or firm can also help distill your brand for you. They have an outside perspective, and they can also keep up with the ever-evolving social media landscape. Should you do TikTok? And things change so quickly. Now you can put links in Instagram stories. Several months ago, you couldn't. But it only makes sense to hire a firm or a dedicated individual when you are fairly well established. You have a body of work to pitch. Don't jump the gun. Build your portfolio. Get your work out there via your website or social media, events, designers, show houses, etc. How would you recommend someone start PR? Now, these tips are for individuals. They could also be, say you hire a PR marketing professional. These are things that you can do to guide them, or you'll have an insight if you someday hire a PR firm. Be a joiner. You're part of this week, so you are a joiner by definition. Join ASID. A lot of people have said that. It's a great organization. Take part in events and meetings, go to trade shows, visit design centers and showrooms, participate in designer show houses. Many of them have media days where you meet the media, build relationships. Get familiar with design trade magazines. These are ones targeted specifically to designers, Designers Today, AD Pro, Business of Home, and don't disregard trade magazines in particular industries. Window Fashion Vision, Furniture Today, Rug News and Design, Technology Designer. These are read by CEOs, the CEO of the Shade Store, the CEO of Vanguard Furniture, Bernhardt Furniture. It never hurts to build relationships with these outlets. Down the road, it could end up in synergy. Speaking on a panel, Instagram Live, podcast, serving on an advisory board, and possibly product licensing. If you're interested in hotels and office work, these magazines and outlets are great. Hospitality design, interior design, Inspired Design is the design publication of Hotel Business. And pay attention to the media. Research editorial calendars for magazines. They're good to see what the issues are focusing on, and they're generally under advertising and media kits on websites. Look up editors and writers of articles you like. Many will be freelance, and it's not as easy as just looking at a masthead, and the media landscape is constantly evolving. 2 sites to find emails, Rocket Reach and Hunter.io, and be organized and keep lists. Now, if you do hire a PR firm, most of them invest in media databases. So that's an advantage at some point of having a PR firm. And follow and like journalists on social media. Everyone cares about follower counts. However, I find when it comes to interacting with journalists to pitch products, email is generally best. And these are some of the opportunities that have come to members of ASID New Jersey. These are published from a few months in the ASID magazine. You've got Design New Jersey, you've got My Domain, Apartment Therapy, Mansion Global. What are your top 5 tips for getting PR? Understand and respect the media. They're more time-starved than ever. Give them what they want, when they want it, and nothing more. And you will become a source for them. They will come back to you. They need you. Limit and streamline communications. Everything should be in the email with one email follow-up. And Ren will talk more about this. Call only if critical. Accept rejection graciously. Very few media will ever tell you why they rejected a project. It's crowded out there, and you want to keep the doors open. Target the pitch. Target the pitch to what the journalist is covering or the specific information they're seeking. Don't start talking about purple rooms when they asked about pink ones. Compliment them on a recent feature social media post if you can. Enter awards and competitions. This is a great way to get your projects, particularly in the commercial and hospitality side, interior design, hospitality design, boutique design. They all have awards, and Luxe Interior Design on the consumer side also has an awards program. And the ASID Design Excellence Awards are a great way to get your work out there. The early bird you'll see here is the deadline is March 11th. The regular deadline is April 11th. And George Oliphant of George to the Rescue will be at the June gala. And the winners are published extensively, plus in ASID New Jersey's own communications. Boast about your coverage. You can track coverage with TalkWalker alerts. I find these better than Google alerts. You can put in your name, your firm name, anything you want to track, and coverage comes from around the world. Post the images with links on your website if you have one. Post on social media, tagging the journalist and the outlet, and include in e-newsletters to your client. Everyone thinks social media is great. I agree, but e-newsletters can be very effective because it can be a one-on-one communication between you and your client. Besides ASID New Jersey PR alerts sent to members, how can someone find out about potential PR opportunities? Here is an example of some of the PR alerts I send out, and they're chock full. But you can also work on seizing opportunities yourself. Read the trades, follow on social media, keep up with the industry. I noted that Terry Fiore listens to the Business of Home podcast. Get to know your hometown media, join a local meetup group, charity, chamber of commerce, etc. And custom publishing is also big, with brands doing their own magazines. Cambria, General Plumbing Supply have magazines. Other vendors have e-newsletters. If you have a project that has a lot of a certain company's products, consider pitching it to them to include in their publications. Everyone is looking for content. Content is king. How should you go about preparing and ultimately pitching your product or idea to various outlets? Media are always looking for trends and tips. This could be for an article. It could be for you to be on a panel, be part of a podcast. And you really know best. You live the trends every day. So remember, you are an expert. And if you're pitching a trend, idea, or product, point out what is unique and different and put it in a larger framework. This will help the journalist. For projects, good photography is a must. And Ren will talk more about this. Media have less budget for shoots, have lots of shots taken, full room shots. Details are good, and everyone loves detail shots. But if the viewer can't relate it to the overall room shot, it's not as worthwhile. And styling matters. Always try to have something living in a shot, a candle, flowers, and present well on Instagram and on your website if you have one. If you don't have a lot of projects, inspirational photos are fine. It's also fine to mix in the personal on Instagram in particular, if it gives people positive insight into who you are. Know the outlet you are pitching and ask yourself, and again, Ren will know a lot about this. You should think about these things. Why should they cover you and your project versus someone and something else? Is there a unique story? What was your client and your vision for the project? Where were there specific challenges that needed to be overcome? This doesn't have to be a long thing. It can be a paragraph or two, but these are just things that you should think about. And for national magazines, sometimes what kinds of products and materials are used can be important. If you used a lot of Sub-Zero Wolf in a high-end kitchen, some national outlet may say, oh, we're looking for projects. They're a major advertiser. It can help it get published. And then, of course, will the client agree to have their name and location published? Is there anything unusual you want to note about the client? Was there someone else to include? And there should be a link to the photos, high res when available, through a file sharing service, so journalists can easily view, and include a few low res in the body of the email. Lastly, exclusivity. Don't pitch to multiple outlets at once. Most like to have exclusivity. Honesty is the best policy. If the project has been published previously, be upfront about as to where and when. And some outlets may run it anyway, and Ren will talk about this. And national, local versus national. National coverage may build your brand over time, and national placements can grow your website's SEO, because if you're in apartment therapy and they link back to your website, it's a strong backlink, and it will help when someone puts your, goes designer and interior designer in New Jersey, it'll help it come up. But local magazines can really help get clients in your area. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. So many great points. So many great points. And I want to just say on a couple of the points before we have Ren Miller speak. She mentioned competitions, and the DEA awards you can find out about on, which stands for Design Excellence Awards. And there is a student category for those of you who are students, and it is free for you to enter your student projects. And you can find all about the Design Excellence Awards on the ASID New Jersey website. Also, just a word to the wise, if you were planning on entering your portfolio, if you are an advanced level student in the national portfolio competition for ASID, and you failed to get it in by the deadline, which was this week, they have extended that deadline for a few days. So if you are a junior, senior level student and you have a really strong portfolio, you should absolutely look into that competition, and you can find out about that on the national ASID website. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ren Miller, who is such a wonderful friend to not only ASID New Jersey, but the design community, the entire design community of New Jersey. Ren, as editor-in-chief of Design, As editor-in-chief of Design NJ, Ren Miller combines his love for words with his interest in interior, architectural, and landscape design. His goal is to share those interests by presenting the stories behind beautiful, functional, and comfortable homes where the owners can relax, rejuvenate, and focus on the truly meaningful aspects of life. Now in his 17th year at Design NJ, he leads a talented team of editors who share those interests. During his career in publishing, Ren has accumulated experience in editing, writing, design, and marketing for newspapers, magazines, and social media, and startup and established publishing environments. I will now turn it over to Ren Miller, who is a true font of wisdom.
Thanks very much, Jeffrey. And it was very interesting to hear Sarah's presentation, because Sarah, I think you must be hiding somewhere in our office, because the information you gave is the same information we talk about every day. So please, for anyone who wasn't taking notes, go back and listen to her portion on the video once it's available. But for those of you students who may not be familiar with Design New Jersey, we're a consumer magazine. We publish 6 times a year, and we focus on luxury residential design, including interior, architectural, and landscape design from throughout New Jersey. And our goal is to inspire readers to make their homes not only beautiful, but also functional, and to be their favorite place to be. And when we write stories, we try to do it from the perspective that they should hire a professional to help them get to that goal. And I'm talking primarily today about Design New Jersey, but like Sarah said, keep in mind that you have a lot of opportunities with all design and lifestyle magazines and newspapers and even digital-only publications. So some of you may be thinking, why should you be published? Does it really make a difference? Do you really get more business? Why can't you just depend on your own website and your own social media pages? And you absolutely can and should use your own website and social media pages, but there's so much clutter and so much competition online today and that's only going to increase with time. So you should consider any option that's available to you to gain a wider audience. There are 5 things that I want to just point out for you to keep in mind when you consider whether there's value in being published. And the first is, because a business is good right now, and it may, if you're a student, it may still be good when you graduate, but there will be another downturn. There's always another downturn, and it's not that there's no business to be had during a recession, but there are the same number of designers chasing fewer projects. So it's a good idea for you to have your name top of mind when a homeowner decides it is time to do a project. Being published also burnishes your reputation. When you think about it, if you go on a company's website and in the press section or whatever it is they call the section on their website where they list where they've been published, it tells you one thing if they have 2 listings and something else if they have 22 listings. You know, it doesn't mean that that the company with 2 listings is any less talented, but if you're looking for a business to hire, if you see 22 listings, 22 places where they've been published, it gives you an idea that, wow, this company is really on top of things. This is the company that I should interview. Also, Sarah mentioned about social media. It has grown to be such an important part of a designer's promotional toolbox, but it's also become an important part of publications' promotional toolbox. And what that means, as far as you're concerned, is that when you're published, you're not only exposed to your own social media universe, but also the publication's social media universe. And that hopefully will lead to more inquiries. And that's the 4th point. The more inquiries you have from potential customers, the more selective you can be in the projects you choose. Those of you who are practicing designers, raise your hand if you've had a horror customer. If you have a lot of potential customers, then you can be more selective in the ones you choose. If you have a bad feeling about someone during the interview process, or if a project feels like it's going to be too small, or for some other reason you won't be able to meet your profit margin, then you can just move on to the next project. And 5th, being published is sort of a gift that keeps on giving, because it'll live on your website forever. It'll live on the publication's website probably forever. You'll both be promoting it during the time that issue is out. In our case, because we're 6 times a year, that's 2 months that we'll be promoting your project. You can send a link to the project to everyone on your email list. And you can even go old school and print it out and frame the layout and hang it in your office, because when a potential client is in your office and sees that you've been published, I mean, you're going to have credentials anyway, because you will have graduated from a respected design program and be a member of ASID. So you have those credentials. But if a third party, like a magazine, decides that your work is worth publishing, that burnishes your credentials and your reputation even more. But that still doesn't answer the question, do you really get more business from it? And quantifying that answer can be hard, because you're not selling a new shirt or a loaf of bread. What you're doing is costing thousands of dollars. And homeowners who see your project in a magazine may not be ready at that time to do a project. But we do know that readers save their issues, they clip articles and put them in notebooks, they pin projects to Pinterest. However, a reader keeps track of the projects and the designers they like, it's good if your name is among the ones that they are considering, even if it's a year or 2 later. And sometimes it is more immediate. Just in this past year, I went back into our records and we got emails from a couple of designers and an architect who said that they started to see more inquiries into their services just within a couple of days of when we published one of their projects. So you never know if the response will be immediate or a year or two later, but at least get your name in the running. Now, if you're just starting out in the business, you may not have any project to submit, and Sarah gave some good ideas on how you can still get published or get recognition. If you are working with an established designer, if you've just graduated, volunteer to put together a package of that designer's work to submit to a publication. It'll help your boss and it will give you good experience for later. Another option is you can do a project at your own home because readers love to see inside designers' homes. If you're doing that, if you've just graduated and budget is a concern, just do a room or two, a bedroom and a bathroom suite, or two kids' rooms, or a laundry and a mudroom, or even a porch. You don't have to submit a whole project. Or like Sarah said, you can volunteer as an Ask the Expert. When she was talking about that, I remembered an email that I sent her just a couple of weeks ago. Sarah had sent a list of designers who specialize in certain areas, and I had misplaced the list, and I emailed her to see if I could get another copy of it, and I had it within a couple of minutes. So she's a good resource, and that's a good way that you can get your name published even if you don't have a project. If there's some area that you're passionate about, let us know about it and let Sarah know about it, and maybe we can work that into a blog somehow. I should say that the last three options that I talked about, if you're working with another designer, clear it with that designer first, because we don't want any hard feelings going behind your employer's back. You should also follow publications online so you can see what we publish. Introduce yourself with an email, or walk up to us at a trade show or a house tour or show house. Hopefully those things will start to happen again soon. But it's important on both ends to establish that kind of a relationship, because we depend on designers to submit projects to us, and you depend on us to publish them. So it's good for us to have that mutual relationship. Don't ever hesitate to contact us and just say hello. When it does come time to submit a project, what do we look for? We really look for all styles, but the spaces should look current, not like they're from 10 years ago or not like they're from a museum. They should reflect the homeowner's personality. We should get a feeling of what the homeowner is like, not your personality, unlike what we see sometimes on a certain unnamed television channel. Also, I should mention that depending where you are in your career, you may or may not have heard the phrase architectural photographer. Photographers specialize just the way some other professions do. They may specialize in photographing food or people or businesses. They may specialize in a whole range of things, including architecture. And by architecture, that's interiors and exteriors. And these people have a special training and special skill, and they're able to translate 3 dimensions into 2 in ways that some other photographers don't. And that's important. It's a skill and a science, and it's important to hire someone who understands that when photographing your projects. And once you find a good architectural photographer who you like to work with, that's someone who's going to be with you for your entire career. So don't hesitate to do that. Don't neglect to do that. Once you have your photos, how do you submit them? I won't go into a lot of detail right now because our time is limited, but we have pretty extensive instructions on our website. You can go to designnewjersey.com and click on About, and you'll see a section that says how to submit, how to get published, and how to submit. But let me just hit some highlights. It should be residential. We don't cover commercial or public spaces. It has to be in New Jersey. Like Sarah said, in our case, it can't have been published in a competing publication. And in our case, it's consumer magazines. You can be published in ASID's Blueprint because that's publication. It's a great publication, but it's not available to the general public. So it's, in that respect, it's not competing with us. And like Sarah said, don't submit to multiple publications at once, because once we approve a project, if we find out that it's going to appear in another magazine before we have a chance to publish it, we'll have to pull it, because we promise our readers they won't see anything on our pages that they've seen somewhere else. Okay, you've submitted a project, but it was declined. It can be disappointing. It happens more often than we like because we have limited space. But you know what, I should say, even before I get to that part, if once you do submit a project, you'll probably hear from us within a month if it was a general submission. Sometimes we have to go back and forth with a couple of emails to get all the information we need before we make a decision. If it's a specific topic for on our editorial calendar, like if you're submitting something for the kitchen issue, we'll hold on to that project until the deadline for that issue passes so that we can give equal consideration to every submission. But we will get in touch with you just to make sure that it's okay to hold that project. And if you want to just submit it somewhere else, that's fine. You know, there's no hard feelings there. We feel that good design should be published regardless of where it's published. We want it to be published. Also, keep in mind when you're photographing a project, if there's seasonal decor in it, like if there are pumpkins or colored leaves on the dining room table, we're going to hold that for a fall issue. Or if you can see snow through the window, we're going to hold that for a winter issue. So just keep that in mind when you're photographing. Okay, then back to the issue of what happens when you're declined. It's most likely not that we didn't like the design. It's most likely because we have already approved recently approved a project with a similar feel to it, or it may be in we've approved a project in the same town. Because we cover the whole state, we like to have a range of styles and a range of towns. One story may have a better backstory. One project may have a better backstory. Again, like Sarah mentioned, you know, if a family is rebuilding after a fire, that makes a good story. Or if you're redesigning a home for the daughter for the daughter in a home where she grew up, that makes an interesting story too. But in the end, we do have limited space. Like I said, we only have 6 issues per year. So don't be discouraged. Please don't be, and keep on submitting. Your time will come. And in the meantime, in the past 2 years, we've been developing our web exclusive section in our website. So that could be an option too. We may get in touch with you and ask if you would be okay if we publish it on our website only. And because that's not in the print issue, we do heavy promotion of that. We cross promote it on our website, in our social media, in our emails, and we link to it in our newsletters. So that's another option for you. So thank you for listening, and I'll turn it back to Jeffrey.
Thank you so much, Ren. So much valuable information, which I know people are going to have questions about. And I have to say, I'm aware from the attendee list that we have several practicing designers in the audience today, and I'm hoping you will all do some great live questions to our panel today, because I know that several of you have been published yourself, and others have fantastic projects that you would probably like to get published. So no better place to ask the questions you need to know the answers to than here today. All right, now on to our interior designer, who it was important to add to this panel so that she could talk about putting what Ren and Sarah are talking about into practice in an interior design firm, and especially one that is as exciting as her firm is in the work that they do and the amount of press that she gets. Known as an intuitive designer that breaks the norms when it comes to empathic design practices, Blanche Garcia is a creative that continues to grow in her industry. She is an award-winning certified interior designer with over 25 years of experience in the design business. Blanche was also the principal designer in the popular Travel Channel reality series Hotel Impossible for 5 seasons. She helped tackle the job of revamping hotels all over the United States, along with the host, Anthony Melchiori. Now, as a new mom, she continues to take on new challenges. Her design firm, B. Garcia Designs, located in Montclair, New Jersey, continues to grow by expanding her clientele and growing her diverse women-only firm. And she doesn't plan on slowing down anytime soon. Her unapologetic opinions and natural intuition are one of the things that make her stand out when it comes to captivating an audience. So Blanche, captivate us. The stage is yours.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to share a couple slides before I do. I'm so excited to be here. I know it's a Saturday and we probably all want to be doing something like having a cocktail or shopping or I don't know what else. I'm in baby land, so I don't get to do much of that right now. But I'm so happy that I was able to hear Sarah and Ren. A lot of the information that they shared is extremely relevant. It's a lot to take in, so I'm glad that they're going to be posting this after and some of the information, because a lot of the things that they say and that they explained are tools that I have used throughout my career. So I'm going to show you a little bit real quick. I'm going to share my screen just of a couple of highlights recently or the past couple of years that we've been published in projects. So let's share this. Okay, so here we are. There's me, really huge. Sorry, my my PR person put me there. Okay. So one of the projects that I was really happy about, it's called Rainbow Ridge. And this is one of the projects that sometimes the stars align and you end up with a client that you really love. And you also end up with a project that you're able to express yourself creatively that is very connected to who you are as a creative, right? That doesn't always happen. And I will say to you that there is a very much direct correlation between the success of a project and how it's viewed through the lens sometimes, because a project that you're proud about or a project that you really have loved, you are going to scream it from the rooftops, right? But if you had something that was a lot of problems and things like that, I always feel like the energy of that always comes through. And I've said it before in other kind of speaking events that I've done, that if first of all, I don't work with clients that I don't connect to or I don't think is a great fit, okay? And if I see trouble in paradise, I usually cut the cord pretty quickly and say, listen, this isn't right for me. But I also have gotten to the end of projects where the project wasn't exactly the way I thought. Maybe the client went off the rails a little bit. And I know in my mind that I may not photograph that project, but if I did, it may not be one that I put out there. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of you because you're starting out and you're like, listen, I need to do whatever I can to get it out there. But one of the most important things I want to reiterate or stress is that only put out work that you love, that you're proud of. There's a difference between the work that brings in money and the work that is, your everyday work that you're like, yeah, that looks good, versus the work that's going to have your name on it that speaks for you when you're not in the room. Very big difference. So this project was one that really spoke to me. This is in Livingston, but this was a family that was very modern. They like a very California vibe. For me, I love an open, airy space with some vintage appeal, lots of customization. The whole house was basically custom and my fingerprints are literally all over it. And it was over a couple of years. So we started probably about maybe even 7-8 years ago, and we finished majority of it within a year and a half, and then just kept going, right? So this project turned into Architectural Digest Italia online, Architectural Digest Middle East online. Locally, it turned into Rue Daily. And one interesting thing to note is that the images that ended up in Middle East and also Italia was actually a more recent project, but the rules in Europe are very different than the US. What Ren was saying and what Sarah was saying was basically true, that in the US, once it's in one publication, another publication doesn't really want to pick it up. They don't want competing publications. In Europe, it's very different. They're okay with multiple publications picking up your work. And we'll talk a little bit about how this happened, but I wanted to show this to you. And then in Rue Daily, for instance, just like we're what Ren and Sarah said, because this was placed US, this was probably the only place that I was going to place the primary bedroom and the bathroom that I had done for this project. And the primary bedroom and bathroom were done years after the original. And we did place the original project in another magazine as well. The second project I want to bring up is a commercial project. So this was Trip Newark Hotel. We finished it a couple years ago. Very colorful, very boutique, was very much about the culture of the location. So it was very much about Newark, and like here you'll see Whitney Houston, she was born in Newark. So we kind of paid an homage to different celebrities that were born locally. And this hotel was all about tweetable moments. So it's a branded hotel, and they wanted moments that people who were staying there, whether it was for business or pleasure, could take pictures and post and tag them. So that was very important. My favorite place in a hotel or a restaurant is always the bathroom. As a woman, I take a lot of pictures in there, and it's where I kind of like regroup and gab and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that even though it was small and it was underground, that it was kind of special with, we did a mural, even though we had to have a drop ceiling. I just have to point out, we wanted to make it kind of cool. So we did a copper drop ceiling, that type of stuff. This was like a drop zone right before the bathrooms that had this really cool wallpaper, and it was really interesting. This project though turned into Carrel Communications. I'm probably saying it wrong. They published us. Tap into Newark published us. We were the 2019 ASID Gold Hospitality Award winner. So when Sarah was talking about, the awards that are coming up, definitely be a part of them. So I want to talk a little bit about where we are very quickly culturally, how it's very different than when I was starting out, and how where you are now as a designer who's graduating, where that puts you, and some of the places that I have been. So for me, I have an in-house PR person that helps me, that I have on the team. I did it myself a lot of times with some consultants here and there throughout my career, up until maybe a couple of years ago. And then I had somebody join the staff that literally sends out for things that we may have just photographed. But we also do a lot of things like TikTok, and we do social media, and I'm really heavily into that. And kind of like Jeffrey had mentioned, I'm out there a lot. I always knew that being a designer is very multi-pronged, okay? So we do the work, we're the creative, but you also have to be very comfortable tooting your own horn and putting yourself out there. It is a lot easier now than it used to be to get yourself out there. But just because there are places like TikTok and things like that does not mean you should negate and turn a blind eye to publications, because they all help, right? But they do different things. We have in our European placements that we have for instance, the Architectural Digest, that I work with a European public relations person, and that firm places me out there. And we are always looking for certain projects, because we also place them here in the US. We like placing internationally. And it's only if the project is the right fit. Now, that was placed on Architectural Digest social media, on their Instagram, their website. Nowadays, it almost is the same thing and doesn't matter as much as it used to, because social media and the internet are, people, when they see it there, they're not getting as many like publications as much, right? So you still want the publications, because when you see a magazine, it still holds clout. It still is important because it's a different type of reader. But just like you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, you also want to reach the reader who's online, because that is going to be billions of people potentially. So when I place a product, one of my products, which is my projects, I always think about, okay, where am I going to place in the US? What is the right publication for us? what makes sense? And then also, where else would this make sense? Would it make sense on a blog? Would it make sense on our social media, that type of stuff, snippets, things like that. So for me, I always try to think strategically, but also think of the multi ways that one project could work for me. Like Sarah had mentioned, I do become very friendly with a lot of the PR people that are working, like freelance writers. We end up becoming friendly. They know they can depend on me. I deliver on time. I deliver what they want. And I try to answer very quickly. So she was very correct in that. You don't want to give them more than they want. You don't want to be late for things like that. And through that, you build relationships. Now, as you are graduating now, you're like, well, I don't have many projects that people are going to pick up. Your first more important steps will be trade publications. It will be locally. It will be even getting it into Design NJ, things like that. Even if it's a small blurb, it actually will help you because they also publish sometimes a lot of these magazines online. So it helps your SEO, it helps get your name out there, right? It's all piggybacking. So even if somebody asks me to interview for a couple of questions, if the magazine or the publication fits, I'm like, great, because it builds my ranking, right? Another thing to note is that once you're starting out and you're like, wait, I don't have a lot out there, TikTok is your friend. It really is, because there's a lot of influencers out there. There's a lot of DIYers that are posting things that they're doing, even whether it's a hack that you're doing, and you can do this at home. Like, it doesn't even have to be anything crazy. You're just showing your skill and your savvy. So you can literally put together an IKEA console table and turn it into something beautiful. And that's your design sense, like upgrading it. And you reach potential clients. Now, your potential clients at that point may be clients that are DIYers or want your help as a consultant, right? They're not your high-end client, but you're building. And that's a great platform to actually, without getting into a publication that you are publishing, but currently, like on the web, right? So you can do that in the piece of your own home. You can do that with product. You can do that even with designing like one room. There's so many ways. So I don't negate that because we use TikTok. I know, for instance, for me, for my plan, and I want to close this out because I know that we don't have a ton of time, but I want to say that for me, there are reasons for why we are in different publications and online, and I'm going to tell you why. My clients I have worked very hard for my clients to be of a certain fee base to give me what I need and for me to be creative, right? So am I going to find my client on TikTok? Probably not. Am I going to find my client in Europe on AD Italia? Maybe, but it's probably very small. Is my client the average person doing a living room? No, it is not. My average client is either commercial properties or large home renovation custom, right? We rarely take on a single room unless I've known the client for a long time. But for me, there are different reasons I do things. One is you always want to keep your name out there. It's always building your brand. Working in different disciplines, like you've heard everybody today, builds your brand, creates a name. When the client goes to my website, when they are deciding between me and 3 or 5 or 10 other designers, they're going to go to my website, they're going to Google me, and they're going to notice the difference between me and those other designers. That is how I make the sale. That is how I close the deal, okay? So yes, being online, being in magazines builds me up, and it builds up your portfolio. It lets people know who you are. You're building your brand, right? And through brand recognition, vendors know who you are, brands know who you are. They come to you for product representation, and clients go, oh, I know her. Oh, I know that name. So I may not get the client because they saw me online on TikTok or they saw me in a magazine, but more than likely they will know who I am. And if they don't know who I am, once they go to my website and Google me, they will know who I am. And that is why I do it. And I do it in multi-disciplines, right? So I think it's really important to be savvy, to do all the things that Sarah and Ren has said, but don't cut yourself short just because you may not have the projects right now or may not be wherever. You know, just like water going through rocks, there's different ways for everybody. So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Blanche. Could not have been more perfect, honestly. It was exactly why we needed that exclamation point on the program, this program this year. I just want to say to everyone that if you have not yet, if you have not gone to bgarciadesigns.com, you take the time to check that out, because Blanche's website is absolutely fantastic. And you will see that her branding, from the second you first see the first part that you see through when you scroll down, and is so on point and really fantastic. Also, MJ Davino, I think, is on the call today, and I don't know if it's public or not, but if you were interested in hearing more about Blanche's philosophies on being a designer, there was a series that was done at Kane recently, a Lunch and Learn series that you might be able to get a recording of and find that very helpful. I would love to just start out with questions. I see things in the chat box live, but I want to start out with one question about two things that came up. Blanche, could you explain SEO?
Yeah, so basically.
Just because I think that language would be good for people to understand what you mean. Yeah.
So basically, the internet, nothing is ever forgotten. Thank God the internet wasn't really huge when I was younger and dancing on tabletops, because there's no proof. Well, there's not a lot of proof. There's some proof out there. But SEO basically is that your name or your website is embedded. It comes up, and it can be organically or it can be placed, right, in different things. So you could either embed code into your website, for instance. That's a form of SEO, that when people are doing searches like interior designer New Jersey or Montclair or whatnot, it'll pop up, right? And then there's organic. There's organic more so where the more your name is in an article. So let's say I did a blog and they interviewed me and they're like, Blanche Garcia, blah, 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 loves pink, right? And you're like, yeah, it's a little blog. But that may be picked up when people are looking for pink or be looking for a New Jersey designer. It starts picking up. And then another publication will say, oh, you know, we need to do something on the color pink. I wonder what's out there. So they'll Google. You pop up, and then they may take that story and piggyback it. So now your story, that little interview that you did for 5 minutes after you just got out of the shower, you know, has now piggybacked, and your name's popping up and blah, 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 blah. And if you're lucky, it ends up, you know, like wildfire. But the goal is that the more that you do online, the more that you do your presence online in different areas builds that organic SEO, which is really what you want. And maybe somebody else can add more to that, but that is my.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Sarah, you were talking about the tracker, and I think the tracker and the SEO are going to have some similar, it's basically so that you can have hard data on the traction, right? That your stories are getting, or that your name is getting.
You can
essentially
see anytime that your name is mentioned online, it will come up. So it'll give you a sense. Yeah.
We all like to know that there was return on investment, you know, and that it's a way to know that there is actually traction there. All right, so let's open it up live. We actually have about 4 or 5 minutes to take a couple of questions. So who's a brave soul that wants to get out there and get some really important info from either Ren, Sarah, or Blanche?
I have a question for Blanche. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Jocelyn.
Okay. Hi, you talked a little bit about building your website and kind of talking about getting clients. From a previous information that I received from a different panel, they said that preferably most interior designers get their clients through their website versus their social media. Would you agree on that, or would you disagree?
I would say that most of my clientele comes through my referrals, through a lot of my contractors, architects, honestly, even other designers and previous clients. My website, I always made sure was amazing, because your website's where they check you out. Okay.
And it is amazing.
Yeah. And so I always was like, okay, when they go there, I want to make sure that it's impressive and it's a representation of who I am. But in the beginning, your website may be where you get clients. It's not that it doesn't get me clients, but because we do very specific commercial and large scale projects, a lot of the clients that sometimes come to me on my site are not our clients. They may want to be our clients, but they're not the right fit, right? So for me, a much more vetted recommendation is usually our client, because it's recommended by somebody who knows what we do and knows what that person is looking for. So they'll say, oh, you should call Blanche, right? Or bring me in. Social media is rarely going to get you the client unless you are more of a DIYer or more of a like entry designer, right? But it will get you the client if they are scrolling looking for what you're like. It's just like anything else. They go, I want a designer. So they start just like searching, right? So what your social media is like and what your website is like will land the client, but it's not like it's going to grab the client for the first, right? And I was also in the middle of just answering Jennifer about whether you should make a separate social media account if you have a personal. Your social media on business should have some personal images and things like that. I happen to be also a personality, so I show a little bit more. I'm okay with that. But you can have a separate account if it makes you more comfortable and you really just want a personal account for family and friends.
Yeah,
I
good
see.
answer.
Okay.
All right, one more question we have time for. If anyone would like to ask, oh, Marilyn, ask it live, please. Marilyn Laverne. Oh, I'll read it out loud.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, go ahead, Marilyn. Yes.
So my question was about photography and sharing with all of us, myself included, about the criteria that we should apply when selecting a photographer, working with a photographer, or, even creating our own photographs to show our projects that would attract editors.
I think Ren and Blanche are great at answering that. I will say that I have heard if you do, say, a traditional design, if it is there, if there's something that's kind of unique and different about it, it's more likely to attract their attention. They're not just going to report on this is a great example of eclectic design, but if there's something they're seeing that's a little different, that takes the trend a slightly different place, that will get attention. And it's hard because that's not what your clients want most of the time. They just want that beautiful kitchen, but you say, well, I want to get it in, you want to put that light fixture that they didn't like because it's more unusual and it, jazzes up the design a little bit.
Ren, oh, go ahead.
You can jump in, and I also want to make a note too.
I'm sorry, what?
After Ren, I wanted to.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead, Ren, and answer that. And then Sarah, and then Blanche is going to finish this off. That'll be a perfect rounded question answer.
Yeah, what you said is so true, Sarah. And it's also, we're also looking for something that will jump off the page, particularly for a print publication. We're looking for something that will jump off the page. So it shouldn't be so busy. There can be a tendency to put a lot of little tchotchkes and over accessorize a picture. But you have to remember that something that looks fine in a 12 by 14 or 16 foot room is going to come down to, like maybe 9 inches wide. So the less in that, the simpler the room looks, the better it will reproduce, the better it will look in the magazine. And we try to keep that in mind when we're choosing projects too, especially projects that are already photographed. So make sure the pictures aren't too busy. And we also look for a little bit of color because we get so many rooms that are all white. And because a printing press can't replicate all of the shades and textures that the human eye can see, if there's a room that's all white or all one shade, it's not going to reproduce as well as it looks in person. So it's good to have a couple of different colors too, just to show the depth of the room.
Got it. And Blanche, why don't you finish this up with your tip on that?
So from a lot of feedback across the board in a lot of different publications and whatnot, a lot of it is they are looking for the scale of the room a lot of times too. If there's architectural interest within the room, if it is a small space, does it come from a unique perspective? So yeah, it has to have that like certain fairy dust in it, but also like Bren was saying, not too busy and things like that. Now, as a side note, if you really have a project that you poured your heart and soul into and you really want it to be publish, you're like, this is my baby. Two things that will kind of put you out there. They're going to require a little bit of money. One would be a stylist. There are stylists that separately will come and style your space for photography. And that is really great because it's a different set of eyes. They bring product to help style, whatnot. You can hire those. And the second is a lot of large publications usually will only publish, even though it's not talked about, through photographers that they know and work with. So if you can kind of see the photographers that they print a lot of times and you get your work photographed by them, it is usually because they are their clientele and they are a trusted source. And everything in this business is who you know and your relationships. So yes, could you have a photographer that you can afford and you're like, this is great, he's charging me $100 per image, yay. But a lot of times, if you're trying to get into a larger publication, it may not be to your advantage. So be aware of where you want your project to fit, what publications and online places they will fit. And that will help you if you look at who they use as photographers and what their images look like, will help you photograph your project as well as style and choose a photographer.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. We are going to just turn it over to our brand spotlight in just a second, but I want to add that ASID New Jersey has industry partner photographers. So those of you who are members of ASID New Jersey have access to the certain photographers that are industry partners. In fact, those are photographers, some of them I know, you will often see their photographs in Design NJ magazine. So do, as Blanche is saying, start looking at the those names in the stories. It will say photography by in each of those stories that you're looking at in a magazine. We have a very special brand spotlight to happen now, which is Reina Dominguez and Melissa Gara from Sherwin-Williams are going to talk about their brand in a brand spotlight. We're now doing this just like National ASID does, which is giving some time to our branded partners. So I turn it now over to Reina and Melissa.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Let me just get this going and we should be good. Can you guys hear and see presentation fine?
Yes.
Well, don't hear anything yet, but all right, go ahead.
All righty, awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. Good morning. First and foremost, I really want to thank you for carving some time out of your Saturday and really investing it, because this is what we're doing today, investing it into this wonderful program that Jeffrey and the Student Affairs Committee has put together. My name is Reina Dominguez, and aside from being super heavily involved in ASID, particularly the Programs Committee as a chair, I'm also a designer account executive for the Sherwin-Williams paint company. So now we're really going to take a step back. We heard about how to get published, how to get those projects published, but we'll take it a step back and how to put the project together and really how we within Sherwin-Williams come into play for that. Today, my counterpart, Melissa Gara, and I are really going to share, first and foremost, who we are as a company, right? For a lot of you, maybe this is the first time you're hearing Sherwin-Williams. And we'll also talk about what we do within Sherwin-Williams, what that means to you. So we really hope that you're able to walk away just understanding how we can support you throughout your journey. Now, I know they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but we decided to kick it up a notch a little bit and start you off with a little video about who we are.
The Sherwin-Williams story begins in 1866, when a 24-year-old man arrived in Cleveland, entered the paint industry, and set about revolutionizing it. Within a few short years, Henry Sherwin would invent the first ready-mix paint and the resealable paint can. In 1890, Sherwin-Williams introduces a line of marine finishes, 19 years before the Titanic is even built. In 1905, the company introduces its long-standing Cover the Earth logo. The 20s are a time for global expansion and global recognition. The company's line of aviation coatings would be used on some of the most historic flights of the 20th century. In 1941, Sherwin introduces Chemtone, a revolutionary new paint that doesn't require primer or sealer. It sells 3 million gallons in its first year. When the men leave for the front lines, Sherwin-Williams hires the first women fillers and cappers to keep production lines rolling. In 1961, the company introduces a paint can shaker that can mix 5-gallon containers, enabling customers to buy paint in larger quantities. 1977, sales top $1 billion. 1992, the company opens its 2,000th store. Sherwin-Williams helps to repaint the Pentagon after 9/11, donating 10,000 gallons to the restoration effort. The company's products come to protect and embellish many of America's most iconic landmarks and beloved assets. In 2011, Sherwin-Williams is nationally recognized for its low VOC soybean PET formulation. In 2015, it launches Paint Shield, the first EPA-registered paint with the power to kill bacteria. And in 2017, Sherwin-Williams completes the largest acquisition in its history. "150 years of heritage, 150 years of innovation, 150 years of performance."
All right, so this was a video that was actually put together to celebrate our 150th anniversary 6 years ago. So we've been around for quite a while, and fast forward to 2022, here's just a little glance of what our coverage looks like across the US, with today over 5,000 stores in the US alone. So what that will really mean to you is you'll be able to achieve that color accuracy when you're specifying colors. Your product offerings are going to be consistent across the board, pricing, your support when it comes for me, Melissa, or the stores at that point. And it's really just going to be consistent whether you're working in New Jersey or anywhere across the US. Now, I do like to dive in a little bit deeper and really just go over, when it comes to supporting you, Sherwin-Williams has you covered whether you're looking for a DIY project, right? Maybe a school project, a residential space, even commercial spaces, because why not? As we've seen throughout this whole week, networking with ASID could really put you anywhere. And you never know where you end up down the line. Sherwin-Williams still continues to be the #1 manufacturer and distributor of coatings in the world. And if that wasn't enough, we own companies like Minwax, Krylon, Purdy, so those applicators, right? Just to name a few. And we recently acquired Valspar, so you'll see us kind of in there as well. All right, so now you have these two girls talking to you, and we'll tell you kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I will say, Melissa and I have one of the absolute best roles within the company. We are your designer account executives, so think of us as your reps, point of contacts for Sherwin-Williams, whether it's color, specifications, anything product related, and so much more. Melissa, who you'll get to hear from in a little bit more, she covers the northern New Jersey part. So think like Hudson County, north of that, and my coverage actually begins in Union County and south all the way to Monmouth County. And now, just because we're primarily focused here in New Jersey, that doesn't mean that we can't support you in a project in Florida or California, or even connect you with the executives over there so that you have that more one-on-one point of contact and touch. So now that you have an understanding of who we are as a company, right, let's take a look at the good stuff, what we're really here for, and look at that day in the life. So our course, the course of our job is to provide you and all of the designers out there with your most updated color tools, color samples, which are free, by the way, keep you up to date with color trends. So every year we launch color trends and we present them to you. We launch a color of the year. You will see a link in the chat momentarily And for this link, I ask that you take some time after the program and create your MySW profile. What this will do is if you sign up as a design student or a design professional, it will give you access to our thousands of colors that are available in that 4x4 sample. If you've seen our stores, we actually have smaller swatches of that. So right off the bat, those are bigger for you. We also have 5x11 sizes. And even those full sheets that you can see here on the screen on the left, they're 8x11s, they're complimentary, and they're all accessible and free of charge to you today. Normally they ship within 3 to 5 business days once you order them. Now, at the end of the presentation, you'll also receive an attendance link. And with that link, anyone that's attending today's presentation, you'll be able to receive more color tools from us. So you can see on the screen here, we have the fan deck, which is really, really useful. If you are graduating already, or you're maybe in school and you're practicing, you'll also receive our full kit, which has all of the colors that you see in our stores, all the colors that are out there from Sherwin-Williams. And there might be a little bit more of a surprise, but I won't spoil it yet. Maybe Melissa can tell you a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Raina. So I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about our virtual Color Snap program. Over the last 2 years, I think we truly see how valuable that it is to have that virtual tool available. So on the screen here, you see our Color Snap visualizer, and it's a completely free app. You can download it on both Apple and Android. The little fun kind of color chip logo you see there in the middle, that's what the app's going to look like when you go into the App Store. But there's just some really awesome features that are within the app. And just to name a few of my favorites, we have one where it's an instant paint. So you literally could click on the app, instant paint, and start being within the room, and it's just going to instantly paint any of the wall surfaces that you see within your phone. Just be able to show your client right away. There's another feature called paint a photo. So you can simply take that quick photo on your phone and then quickly paint the walls, whatever color you're discussing with your client to. Overall, these tools are built in to help your client see and kind of visualize that color. And that's what they're hiring you guys for. And then one of my absolute favorites, Map to Photo. So you can take a quick photo, whether it's wall covering, fabric, or even an image of inspiration. And then the app's going to start pulling out really awesome Sherwin-Williams colors to just make that really quick for you. Another amazing quick tool that we have is our Color Snap Match tool. So that tool is the one that you see that little like kind of camera with the iPhone there in the screen. It's a portable device, and this device is where you're able to scan any wall surface, fabric, or wall covering, and then it's going to give you the closest Sherwin-Williams color right there on your phone. It works directly through an app. These tools are available at any of your Sherwin-Williams stores. And overall, these features and tools are there to help you select color faster, but also just more efficiently. As selecting color, that's the last thing that we want to be holding you back on a job. Then as you can see here, you have the color girls here. So we love talking paint. And as paint is a way to freshen up a room through color, there's so many more benefits of understanding the correct coatings and what they could do to add value to your projects. So part of our job is really help designers narrow down colors for a project, but also find that correct coating based on the needs for that room and that client. So for instance, you see our Emerald Designer Edition on the screen there. That's one of our most washable and durable coatings. So we're then able to take that and create a customized branded product specification for the designer or client. This way it ensures that the correct colors, correct coatings are going to go in that correct areas in the project, and everyone's able to kind of have clear communication between your client, contractors, and designer. So this is just another free value added service that Raina and I do for our designers on the daily. As you can see here on the screen, just keep in mind, all of our colors are available to download on just about all design programs. So just to name a few, you have your Photoshop, SketchUp, and even AutoCAD. And we love being able to stay in touch, right? So please be sure to follow Sherwin-Williams social media pages. We're definitely located on Facebook and Instagram. Sherwin-Williams has their own SW Design Pros handle, and that's really catered exclusively for our designers and architects. You're going to see project features, new color inspiration, product information, and even just exciting events they're hosting throughout the year. And then definitely stay in touch with Raina and I locally. Be sure to follow our Instagram pages. We're constantly posting inspiration there. or just information about coming up, especially with us kind of moving back to that in-person feel. You'll definitely be seeing a lot of information from us regarding in-person events or even virtual events. So thank you guys so much for really joining us today. Definitely be sure to fill out the forms link. I think Raina is going to pop that in the chat right now. We'll be sending you guys any color information or color tools that you need. And then we're also going to pull one of the attendees and be sending kind of a fun Trillium designer influence gift at the end of the week.
Yay, that's exciting.
There's our info, so stay in touch. And if there's any questions, we'll take those now too.
Thank you both so much. So I have to tell everyone, if you become an active member of ASID New Jersey, you will get to know Melissa and Raina very well. Thankfully, they play very significant roles in our chapter. Melissa is the chair of the membership committee, and Raina is chair of the programs committee. So they play very significant roles, and you will absolutely be able to get to know them. They are wonderful resources. Please put any questions that you have for Raina and Melissa in the chat box right now. And we are going to say a huge thank you to everyone who presented today. Sarah Fletcher, Ren Miller, Blanche Garcia, Raina Dominguez, Melissa Gara. And we hope that you will hop over, as we are about to do, to the keynote presentation that begins in 13 minutes. It's 1:17. So we are saying thank you and have an absolutely wonderful day. And we'll catch you on the Q&A on the other side, on the other Zoom link. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.